All right, so what we've got here is this function, and the midline is going to be a 2, and then this 3 is going to be the amplitude. The negative sign is going to mean it's reflected over the x-axis, but for this question that's not important. What they want to know is the range. So all I got to do is find out if the lowest point and the highest point this graph is going to go. So once I sketch the midline and then add 3 to the top of that for an amplitude and take away 3, what I get is the highest point is going to be a 5 and the lowest point is going to be a -1. And the way I tell people about the range, especially when it's between two numbers, I say f of x is less than or equal to 5, greater than or equal to -1. Now they want me to sketch it, which I should have probably done a bigger one to start with, but anyway, here we go. And I'm going from 0 to 2 pi. So these are the values I'm going to look at. And I'm going to just basically plot these points in the calculator. It's set for radians. And so 2 minus 3 cosine x. I'm going to put a 0 in there for my first angle and get a -1. And then I'm going to put a pi over 2 in there, and I'm going to get a 2. And then I'm going to put a pi in there, and I'm going to get a 5. Which this is awesome because this is validating what I just figured out a minute ago. Goes down to 2, and hopefully you can predict the next point, 2 pi, should end up being -1 to follow our pattern here. And it is. So I plot that. Keep in mind you want to create this little tail. This should be the peak, and then again a little tail. It should be flattening out as it approaches those extremes. Alright, so then I label it. It's not super important with only one. If there was more than one, you definitely would need to label them. Anyway, for part 3, it says that we have the same function, but now they're saying the x's are going from 0 to p. And they want to know what domain we could use, so this would have an inverse. All right, so keep in mind the rules for an inverse. A function, for a function to have an inverse, that's a function, that has to pass the horizontal line test. So clearly, what we're looking at on our graph does not pass the horizontal line test. This question is saying, where would I limit the x's so it would pass the horizontal line test? So if that's the case, you can tell that it should pass the horizontal line test. It's going to peak at pi. So the largest value would be pi, and then I would only hit the right-hand side of the graph, and that would pass the horizontal line test. That would be the inverse. And now they want to actually find the inverse, which we probably didn't do, but it's not a big deal. Just switch the x's and y's, and then solve for y. So we're going to get the y by itself. We're going to subtract the 2, divide by -3, or multiply by 1/3. And then to get the y by itself, we're going to take the inverse of cosine. So it's going to be cosine -1, and now I can switch places and put this inside there, and that's going to equal y. And so the y is by itself. That was my job. I'm going to go ahead and distribute this -1/3 just to kind of finalize things. And so what I'm going to end up with is -x plus 2 all over 3, and that's my solution. And I'm good to go. Thanks for watching.